National 9 Newsbreak, brought to you by ANZ First.
Good afternoon. The federal government wants to remove the rioters from the Woomera Detention Centre. The move follows the second night of rioting at the centre, where detainees again set fire to buildings and were finally subdued by tear gas and water cannon. Acting Immigration Minister Daryl Williams has described the behaviour as outrageous by people seeking to enter Australia unlawfully. A man is in a critical but stable condition in Royal Brisbane Hospital after suffering severe burns to his face and upper body in a caravan fire on the Gold Coast early this morning. He told firefighters he'd gone to bed at the Mudgeeraba Caravan Park with a lit cigarette and awoke to find himself and the van on fire. Westbound lanes on the Logan motorway were closed to traffic for several hours this morning after a semi-trailer crashed into a bridge over Slacks Creek. The driver escaped without injury. And the hunt continues for master terrorist Osama bin Laden, who appears to have escaped from the Afghan and Allied forces at the Tora Bora Caves. More news next hour.
More Australians get their news from Channel 9 than from any other source.
National 9 Newsbreak, brought to you by ANZ First.
Good afternoon. The RACQ has called on the state government to repeal legislation that disqualifies drivers caught with expired licences. A recent amendment now imposes an automatic 6-month driving ban for those who fail to renew their licences on time. A Supreme Court jury is deliberating in the murder trial of Dr Michael McGrain, accused of injecting a pregnant patient with a lethal dose of morphine. And New York's world-renowned St John the Divine Cathedral has been badly damaged by fire. National 9 News tonight at 6. Join us then.
More Australians get their news from Channel 9 than from any other source.
National 9 Newsbreak, brought to you by ANZ First.
Good afternoon. You'll know just how clean the Brisbane River is when next you visit the Environmental Protection Agency's website. The information comes from sensors recently placed at strategic places along the river, measuring the water quality. Also making a splash, around 100 boys auditioning in Brisbane for just 2 parts in the musical Singing in the Rain. The show starts in February. And 2 koalas from Lone Pine Sanctuary have raised smiles from children at the Mater Children's Hospital. National 9 News tonight at 6. Join us then.
More Australians get their news from Channel 9 than from any other source.
National 9 Newsbreak, brought to you by ANZ First.
Good afternoon. The Governor-General, Dr Peter Hollingworth, has just issued a 2-page statement in response to his handling of child sex abuse at a Toowoomba school when he was Archbishop of Brisbane. He says allegations of a cover-up are unfounded and regrets that legal and insurance considerations to some extent inhibited the church taking a more active role. A student abused by senior boarding master Kevin Guy has been awarded more than $800,000 in damages. In other news, the Queensland Industrial Relations Commission has called for a government inquiry into a Brisbane trucking firm after one of its drivers was jailed over an accident that killed 2 people. Harker Transport has denied it forces drivers to work long hours. The Immigration Department has defended its use of tear gas and water cannon amid calls for an investigation after another night of violence at the Woomera Detention Centre. And Hawaii's famous Pipeline Masters has come alive with surfers attempting to ride the pounding 3-metre swells. National 9 News tonight at 6. See you then.
More Australians get their news from Channel 9 than from any other source.
National 9 Newsbreak, brought to you by ANZ First.
Good evening. The Governor-General says allegations of a cover-up over the sex abuse scandal at an Anglican school in Toowoomba are unfounded. He also denies claims that he was uncaring, saying his hands were tied by legal and insurance problems. Tensions are high at the Woomera Detention Centre tonight after a second riot by detainees. And Tom Cruise has stepped out with girlfriend Penelope Cruz at the Sydney premiere of their movie Vanilla Sky. I'll have more news next hour.
More Australians get their news from Channel 9 than from any other source.
National 9 Newsbreak, brought to you by ANZ First.
Good evening. A campaigner against child abuse is maintaining her rage against Governor-General Peter Hollingworth despite his official response tonight to the Toowoomba prep school sex scandal. Hetty Johnson says the former Archbishop should have said sorry and resigned. Dr Hollingworth said he'd been constrained by legal and insurance requirements and said all the allegations against him are unfounded. The RACQ is warning drivers to check their licences before setting off for holidays, saying changes in legislation means anyone charged while driving with an expired licence will be automatically disqualified for 6 months. There have been calls for an inquiry into violence at the Woomera Detention Centre after a second night of unrest. Guards were pelted with palings and stones and water cannon and tear gas used to quell the uprising. And in Afghanistan, American military chiefs have admitted the trail has gone cold in the hunt for Osama bin Laden. Next news in Nightline. Good night.
More Australians get their news from Channel 9 than from any other source.
This weather update is brought to you by New Grapefruit Morning Fresh.
Good evening, staying fine and warm for the southeast tomorrow with light to moderate southeast to northeasterly winds, reaching 30 degrees in the city, 32 in Ipswich. Temperatures sitting in the low 30s over the weekend, showers clearing Monday.